Is having a fantastic weekend and start to the month of March. I know we are on well, we're almost done with March, so I shouldn't say start to the month of March, but having a great month of March and forging ahead. This is the last month of Q1, which could mean something for a lot of people or nothing for some people. But I hope you are reflecting on your goals, reflecting on the goals that you set back in January, seeing where you're at, what progress has been made. But the good news is there's always time to regroup. So tonight, I really want to talk about the idea, the whole concept of what it is we're doing, right? Building healthy habits and creating those healthy habits to create that lifestyle that you want. Because again, it's not what you can and can't have, it's how much and how often. And when you complete the what you eat, what you think, what you do 90% of the time, and you're on track, then you are going to be making progress towards your goals. Now, easier said than done. I know that. We've all been there. Sometimes it's easy to say no to something. Sometimes it's not so easy to say no. But what I really want to talk about tonight is scheduling your priorities, not prioritizing your schedule. And this was a quote that came up yesterday as I was doing my personal development. And it really stuck with me because I think it's really important that it's just that one little shift in the way we think about things. And when I look back on when I originally started my journey, that's exactly what it was. I scheduled my priorities. I remember scheduling the time I was going to go to the gym. Now, do I still do that? Absolutely. But when I find that I don't schedule that in, guess what happens, right? It's so easy to say no to what you know you should be saying yes to. So schedule your priorities. Don't prioritize your schedule. And what that could look like, I want to give some examples of that. That could look like, okay, we say yes to so many things that other people want us to do. But what if that conflicts with something that or it prevents you from saying yes to something you know you need to be doing to reach your goals? And so that's why it's so important to schedule your priorities that way. When someone asks you, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? Hang on, let me look at my calendar. Yes, I can, or no, I can't. And then you can decide when you're asked, whatever you're asked, you can decide if that becomes a priority, right? You have to weigh that. Is that something that's going to move you towards your goals? If the answer is yes, then you could probably make that a priority. But if it's something that's not going to be productive and create movement toward your goals and it doesn't fit within your calendar, it's okay to say no. And I know for those of us that are like me, and that's many people out there, it's very hard to say no because you don't want to disappoint people. But what I found is, and I just had this discussion with my trainer yesterday too. I schedule my priorities. That's the only way I get anything done anymore anyway. And so it was nice that came up when it did in my personal development. But I got to the gym an hour early because I needed to be on a call that was going to run right up until the time that I was scheduled to be at the gym. Well, the gym obviously is a priority to me. And so I decided, okay, I can go to the gym an hour early and I know nobody will be there. So I'll sit in the office and do my call there. And then I'll finish the call and go right into my workout. Well, my trainer showed up a little bit early, and which is fine, obviously. And it was funny because he started giving me a lecture about how I have to prioritize working out and I have to prioritize where I am. And I just looked at him. I said, that's exactly what I was doing. Right. Something came up that I had to take a call from 9 to 10. I had already scheduled with you at 10 o'clock. So I got here an hour early so that I didn't have to push our schedule back by saying, okay, well, I won't be done until 10, so I can't get to the gym until 10:15, 10:30. And when I said that, he just started laughing and he's just like, that makes so much sense. And he said, and I got here like 10, 15 minutes early. And so, of course, you weren't ready to go right then because you were finishing up your other priority. And so that's what I mean. You have to get creative. And I could have taken the call from my car, had there been somebody at the gym. That's neither here nor there, but we have to get creative. And that's the same thing when we think about the what we eat, what we think, and what we do. When that becomes priority, then scheduling it becomes easier and easier. And by scheduling it, I mean, when are you eating? Right? Schedule that around your commitments because obviously we all have work, we all have things that we have to do. How are you going to fit it in? And a lot of times that probably means bringing something with you. And I can remember back when I was on my original journey, I always had my food planned out the night before. Well, really the week before, but the night before. And many of you do that. But then it was so much easier to just say, okay, I need to go take 5 minutes to eat this really quickly. Because with the formula, it's not like you're sitting down to a 3-course meal, right? You're eating 20 to 30 grams of protein, which is about 3 to 4 ounces of protein. You're eating 5+ grams of fiber, 10 to 15 grams of carbs, 5 to 8 grams of fat or less. So you're likely sitting down eating 3 to 4 ounces of a protein and then some sort of vegetable. That's it. That shouldn't take you that long to eat, right? And so when we think about that, it's so much easier to say, okay, I've got to take 5 minutes to eat, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever. I've got to take 5 or 10 minutes to eat every 3 hours or so. It's so much easier to schedule that in when we plan ahead. So we're scheduling our food. We're also scheduling our workouts. The worst thing we could possibly do is say, I'll get to it when I get to it. Right? And we all know that. When it doesn't get put on our calendar, it doesn't get put in our plan, it's not going to get done because people are not getting less busy. People are getting busier and busier. As a matter of fact, I was watching a show the other day and they talked about how every Sunday used to be a day of rest for everyone. Stores shut down. People would go to church and then just spend time with families or whatever they did on Sundays, right? Whether it was just they did nothing but now it's just one more day to catch up on everything, to plan, and to truly, it's not a day of rest anymore. And we might do less on a Sunday than we normally would, but chances are we're doing something. And so that's 52 days of year more than what it used to be when we were all growing up, right? And even when I was growing up, I can't say that Sundays were necessarily a day where we did nothing, right? Because I played travel softball. It was nothing to have games on Sundays or whatever, and so it's just, we've gotten out of that habit. And because of that, we stay in that you have to be ready to go mode. And while there's nothing really wrong with that, we have to adjust our priorities and adjust our thinking to not be in reaction mode. We've got to be in that proactive mode. So when we're scheduling our priorities, not prioritizing our schedule, that's how we can truly start to make those huge leaps and bounds towards our goals. So just think about it. What are your non-negotiables? I had this talk in my mastermind last week, actually, about what are your non-negotiables. And that's how you can determine your priorities. And when we talk non-negotiables, your meal planning should be a non-negotiable if that's one of your goals. Your workouts should be non-negotiable, right? I'm not here to tell you what should and shouldn't be, but when you're on a health journey, it has to be. What you eat, what you think, and what you do, those have to be non-negotiables. And obviously, you probably are working, and so your job is a non negotiable. It has to happen. But what are those things that you're not willing to sacrifice for plans with friends, right? I have certain things that I'm not willing to sacrifice, even when it comes to social life, right? I was asked to be at a meeting this last Thursday for my HOA board. And I said, you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm not, because it makes no difference whether I'm there or not. They don't need me to be there. I'm not on the board, right? But they just wanted me to be there. And I could easily say no because I schedule my priorities. And it was during a time where something that I had scheduled was a priority. So sorry, not going. And so the more we can get very confident about, hey, these are my priorities, this is what I'm doing, the more confident you're going to be. And then that confidence comes with completion of your goals, because that confidence gives you that boost to continue to opt in. Because if you're saying no to things, you're saying, I'm not negotiating this. This is my priority. And so this is what it has to be. And what that tells your brain and your subconscious is, okay, this is important. This is what we have to do. And so just think about what your non negotiables are, write them down, and then that's what you schedule first. And then everything else gets scheduled around it. And sometimes that's a hard concept because we are constantly being asked and pulled in 1,000 different directions. Right? But because I knew what my priorities were, when I was asked to do something that fell outside of those priorities, it was easier to say no because I've clearly defined what my non negotiables are and what I'm not willing to give up. And it doesn't matter what those are, but you just have to be honest with yourself. If you're not willing to give it up, it needs to go on that non negotiable list. If you are willing to give it up, then it doesn't need to be a non negotiable. All right. So that's your assignment for the week, is to develop your non negotiables, because those are now your priorities, and then develop your schedule around it. And what I think you'll find is that you have a lot more time than you ever thought you did. There is time to get in everything you want to get in. You just have to prioritize your non negotiables, right? So schedule your priorities first. Don't prioritize the million things and the million different directions that you're being pulled in. All right. So that is your assignment for the week. Figure out what your non negotiables are and put those in your calendar, because some of your non negotiables may not happen every day, right? You're going to have everyday non negotiables. You're going to have probably some weekly non negotiables and maybe some monthly and yearly non negotiables, right? So plug those into your calendar. And then what you'll find is it's so much easier to, one, say no to the things that don't move you towards your goals, but it's also easier to fit in everything that you need to get done. All right. So I will see you back here next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate each and every one of you, and so excited to see you really take control of your calendar, start scheduling your priorities, and really working in those non-negotiables and creating incredible success from that calendar. All right. I'll see you back here next Sunday, 7 p.m. And in the meantime, I will see you on text message and in the chat. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.